All right, let's talk about etiquette. Not the stuffy, use the right fork for fish kind, but the real world stuff. Things you do every day that might be totally fine at home, but could make you look like an absolute barbarian somewhere else. I'm telling you, I've embarrassed myself globally. You'd think basic politeness would be universal. No, turns out, what's charming in one country is borderline offensive in another. So, let's go through some of the most unexpected etiquette traps you might be walking into. And first up, something that instantly divides people the moment they step inside someone's home. Number 1, shoes on or off. So imagine this. You're visiting someone's home for the first time, you walk in, and now you're faced with the great cultural divide of footwear etiquette. In places like Japan, South Korea, Sweden, Turkey, and most of Eastern Europe, taking off your shoes is non-negotiable. You waltz in with your outdoor shoes on. That's basically like tracking mud all over their grandmother's soul. Even in fancy homes, you'll get offered guest slippers. Take them. Wear them. This is not a test. Meanwhile, in America or the UK, this is a mixed bag. Some people prefer shoes off, but in more formal settings, walking around in socks feels weirdly intimate. Like you're suddenly one step away from curling up on the couch with a blanket. My advice? If you see shoes by the door, take yours off. If no one else is removing theirs, keep yours on. But never, ever assume. Number 2, the tipping taboo. Okay, Americans, brace yourselves. Because in Japan, tipping is straight up rude. I know. In the US, tipping is basically a moral obligation. You don't tip, you're the villain of the story. But in Japan, leaving money on the table is like saying, you clearly need charity. Service there is considered part of the job. It's done with pride, not for extra cash. I once left a tip at a ramen shop, and the waiter chased me down the street to give it back. And not in a you forgot this kind of way. It was more like, Madam, I insist you do not dishonor my workplace with your foreign habits. Lesson learned. Meanwhile, in the US, not tipping is basically an insult. Even if the service is awful, you still tip something, otherwise you'll probably get the seriously glare from the whole staff. Number 3, the hugging horror. You ever try to hug a Scandinavian? Yeah, don't. In places like Brazil, Argentina, or even Southern Europe, people are all about the personal space invasion. You meet someone, boom, a kiss on the cheek, or 2, or 3, depending on the country. Strangers hug, friends hold hands, and personal space is more of a suggestion than a rule. But in Sweden or Finland, oh, you better respect that 2-meter force field. A handshake is fine. A nod is ideal. Anything beyond that, and you're making them deeply uncomfortable. Hugging a Finn unprovoked is basically a criminal offense in the court of social norms. Number 4, asking for ketchup in Italy. Listen, if you're in Italy, do not, I repeat, do not, ask for ketchup with your pizza. You might as well demand pineapple and a side of ranch dressing while you're at it. Italians take their food personally. Asking for extra sauce, substitutions, or, heaven forbid, Parmesan on seafood pasta is straight up offensive. It's like saying, I don't trust you to know how to cook your own cuisine. Same goes for France. Ordering a steak bien cuit, well done, will make the waiter pause like, are you sure you want to ruin this? Meanwhile, in America, you can customize the life out of any meal. Extra sauce? No problem. Cheese on the side? Of course. No onions, extra pickles, add avocado? The waiter might roll their eyes, but they'll do it. So, in food-sensitive countries, my best advice? Order as it comes. If you really need to tweak something, do it subtly. Not with a dramatic, can I get a side of ketchup, in Naples. Number 5, punctuality. Early bird versus fashionably late. We all know someone who treats time as a loose suggestion, but depending on where you are, being early, on time, or late can totally change how people perceive you. In Germany, Switzerland, and Japan, punctuality is an extreme sport. If you're invited somewhere at 7 p.m., you better be there at 6:59, looking like you've been waiting your whole life for this moment. Being late isn't just rude. It makes people distrust you. Now slide over to Spain, Italy, or Argentina, and showing up on time is almost awkward. If a party starts at 8 o'clock, that's a polite way of saying, come at 8:45. Arriving at the official time means you might catch the host still in a towel, yelling at the oven. So if you're traveling, always check the cultural clock before deciding when to show up. Number 6, the chopstick crimes. China versus Thailand. Chopsticks. Elegant, simple, and dangerously easy to offend an entire culture with. First, in China, never stick your chopsticks upright in a bowl of rice. It looks like incense sticks at a funeral. And, well, that's not a vibe you want at dinner. It's a major bad luck symbol. Just don't do it and lay them on your dish instead. Now, let's head to Thailand. You might assume, oh, it's Asia, so chopsticks, right? Wrong. In Thailand, you eat rice with a spoon, not chopsticks. Chopsticks are for noodles only. I once tried to be all cultured eating Thai curry with chopsticks, and the waiter straight up handed me a spoon like, "Nice try, tourist." Number 7. Being direct versus beating around the bush. Let's talk communication styles. Because one person's honest feedback is another's soul-crushing rudeness. In Germany or Netherlands, directness is considered a virtue. If your German friend thinks your idea is bad, they'll just say, "That's not a good idea." No fluff, no sugarcoating, just facts. Now, in the UK, Japan, or most of Asia, things get subtler. If a British person says, "That's interesting," that might mean, "I think this is stupid, but I'm too polite to say it outright." And in Japan, they'll nod, smile, and say, even if they totally disagree. You could be pitching them a business deal, and they'll be like, "We will consider it," which actually means, "Absolutely not, but I don't want to hurt your feelings." So, if you're in a direct-speaking country, don't take bluntness personally. And if you're somewhere more indirect, read between the lines. Number 8. Small talk versus no talk. In places like the US, Canada, and Australia, small talk is just how people function. It's the social equivalent of stretching before a workout. You don't just jump into deep conversations without warming up. You chat about the weather, your weekend, your dog, and it's totally normal. Even in shops and restaurants, casual conversation is expected. A cashier might ask, "How's your day going?" And you're supposed to respond with something. It's not an interrogation. It's just a friendly human interaction. You make polite chit-chat to fill the silence. Now, try this in Finland, Germany, Japan, or Switzerland, and watch people slowly back away. These are silence is golden cultures. In places like Finland, talking to strangers is considered unnecessary, not rude, just pointless. And in Germany, if you start a conversation just for the sake of filling the air, people might assume you actually have something important to say. So if you suddenly launch into, "Wow, the weather's been weird lately," a German might just look at you and say, "Yes," and wait for you to get to the point. Number 9. Splitting the bill. Equality versus insulting generosity. This one's tricky. In America, the UK, and much of Northern Europe, splitting the bill is totally normal. Everyone pays for what they ordered. No drama. But try that in China, Saudi Arabia, or even Italy, and you'll start a generosity war. In these cultures, the person who invites is expected to pay. Arguing over it looks stingy, and trying to split it equally can make it seem like you're treating your friends like business associates. The trick? Offer to pay once, but if someone insists, graciously accept. And if you're in a culture where splitting is the norm, just pay your share without fuss. Number 10. The gift-giving minefield. All right, you've been invited to someone's home. You want to bring a thoughtful gift because, manners. But depending on where you are, your well-meaning gesture could either delight your host or make them deeply uncomfortable. Imagine you are a Swiss, so gifting someone your legendary knife would make a perfect sense, just not in China or Japan. It symbolizes cutting ties with the person, not the vibe you want at a dinner party. Flowers are the safe bet in most of the countries, unless they are yellow, which is a symbol of separation and betrayal. When in doubt, do a quick Google search before showing up with an accidental symbol of death, because no one wants their thoughtful gesture to come with a side of existential dread. So, what's the takeaway here? Simple. When you travel, leave your assumptions at home. What feels polite to you might be deeply offensive somewhere else. The best thing you can do is pay attention and adjust accordingly. Good manners aren't about knowing every tiny rule. They're about making people feel comfortable. And sometimes that means stepping out of your own comfort zone. And if you ever do mess up, laugh it off, apologize if needed, and move on. Because the only thing worse than bad etiquette is making a scene about it. Now tell me, what's the weirdest etiquette rule you've encountered? Drop it in the comments, and let's share some embarrassing travel moments together. And hey, before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. As always, stay classy. Manners matters.